A pleasure to have you join us again today on the program Healthy Living. I'm Adisu Walsawagie, and we're going to be talking about something that concerns you and even yours truly. The need for us to always go for medical checkup at least once or twice in a year is not a bad idea, but unfortunately it's not something that most of us indulge in. We see it as a big man thing. Is it really a big man thing? You know, as far as I'm concerned, everybody's a big man. In as much as you can feed, you can house yourself, you can clothe yourself, you don't have to ask for urgent care and all of that. You are a big man. So why is it difficult for us to take that big, bold step of assessing medical check for ourselves? It's quite difficult. So the importance and the need for us to do this is what we're going to be looking at today. And luckily for us, we have a consultant family physician in the house, Dr. Leo Asikidi. He's also the CMD of Ginaud Specialist Hospital here in Benin City. And we're going to be looking at why you should go to the hospital to check yourself. A pleasure to have you join us, sir.
Thank you.
Is it out of place to say Mugode?
Yeah, we are close to it. Yeah, right.
All right. Thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, like I said in my opening, should I say opening speech now? Like I said while opening this program, we don't have the culture. Some of us, most of us, don't have the culture of going to the hospital to assess medical services, no matter how cheap or how expensive it may be. But it is difficult, it is hard, it is not in our culture. So why should we, in the first instance, go to the hospital when we are not sick? All in the name of going to do medical check.
Again, it's a pleasure to be here. And, well, the issue of medical check, like you rightly said, is not a part of our culture here in the black world. But I want to state that it is a common saying that prevention is better than cure. You know, many of the diseases that kill our people, if they were detected quite early, they are actually manageable, and some of them can actually be cured. But because of the attitude of our people to health care, especially the men folk who don't come to hospital,
the men,
you discover that before some of these diseases are detected, they are already too late. And we now, most of the time, give palliative care, and eventually they die sooner or later. So it is important that as long as you live, once you are getting up to age 18 and above, it then becomes necessary that you see a doctor, especially you should have a family doctor who knows you from the beginning, who can tell your history, who knows details about you because you have been visiting regularly. He has your clinical history at his fingertips, that he can almost always, you know, be able to advise you correctly on what to do. Now, like I said, once you are above 18, you should try and see a doctor at least once in 3 to 5 years. I don't think that is too much. If you are a female, you should be able to see a doctor. If you are not sick at all, you don't have any symptom, at least once in 3 years. And as you grow older, all of us know that even if you buy a bicycle and you use it for 1 year, by the time the bicycle is 2-3 years, it's no longer the same.
It's not the same.
Talk less of a human being that goes through stress and what have you every day. So as you grow older, we expect that you should see your doctor more often. Especially if you... Now, somebody may ask, why is it that I need to see a doctor?
When I'm not sick.
There are various things that the doctor does. When you see the doctor, first of all, they will take what we call a clinical history.
Okay.
And this history involves your name, your address, where you live, and sometimes the kind of accommodation you live in, the environment you live in.
Those are important.
Your age, your sex, your family tree, your family history. We want to know also in the history, your leisure. We want to know the kind of job you do, because the job you do also have a direct effect on your health. We want to know your social life. We want to know, virtually everything. Somebody came to my hospital one day and we were clicking. Say, all those ones are not necessary. That's not why I came here. But of course we knew that it was out of ignorance. You may be coming to the hospital just because of headache, but in the course of clerkship, the doctor discovers that that headache that you are talking about is a minor issue. It could be secondary to a disease that is already ongoing that you are not aware of. So it's important, and apart from the clinical history, the doctor will look at you, what we call physical examination. He will look, he will touch you, and he will listen to a certain part of your body using the stethoscope. So, and in the course, just now, for a doctor, when a patient is coming into your consulting room, you start looking at the patient right from the door.
Really?
As the patient is entering from the door, you look at the patient from head to toe. You look at the steps that the patient, the way he's walking, you look at the physique, and all those things will tell you something. I tell people that we are the only people who understand the language of every disease. Because the disease condition speaks to us, and we interpret. So you look at the patient right from the door, and you're able to, even before the patient tells you anything, you're able to make some deductions. So apart from the physical check that the doctor will do, then they will probably carry out some investigations. For example, there's what we call screening. And screening, there are different types of screening for different age group, for different gender.
Okay.
Different screening, different age group for the different genders. Now, we all know that for all humans, it's only the woman that carries the cervix. And that this cervix, we need to look at it from time to time. Otherwise, the cervix is there. Yes, if you don't have any pain, no complaints, but you just do a simple pap smear, and it tells you that it's suspicious. That means that cervix is not very normal. So they need to further look at it. And if you follow up, you discover that you will be saved from cervical cancer. But what we see in the hospital is that most of the time, the cases you see, they come say, oh, I'm bleeding. Each time I meet with my husband, I'm bleeding. Then, by the time you see the patient, cancer is already spreading. And this time, you can do little or not, just palliative care, and the patient goes. So, why don't you, agree just to see a doctor? You may think it's expensive. I won't say that you see a doctor free of charge, because medical training is not free.
It's not free.
Medicine is business. Just like every other businessman runs his business, so also the doctor runs his business. And you cannot expect that you go there and they will say, this Panadol only, that's why you're charging me 5,000. You're not paying for the paracetamol. You are paying for the knowledge of the doctor. And so you go, the doctor sees you, assesses you, makes a proper diagnosis, and if you are fine, the doctor will tell you are fine. That you are fine does not mean you cannot be sick tomorrow.
Well, perhaps that's why a lot of persons don't want to go to the hospital. The hospitals are quite expensive. You see, every nook and cranny of the state, you find these little stalls, 1, 2, 3 persons are selling one traditional medicine or the other. And you see quite a number of men patronize these people because they feel that hospital is expensive. What is the dangers of all of this tradomedical medicine?
To me, the tradomedical is more expensive than Medicare. It's more expensive. I saw somebody some time ago, I won't mention name, of course, who went somewhere and paid 30,000 naira for an investigation. I'm not talking of during this era when everything has somersaulted. I was wondering, so this man can raise 30,000 to pay for this investigation, and that investigation was useless. Many a time, what the doctor experiences is alarming. It's alarming. You know, I think yesterday or so, our immediate past president of World Medical Association was talking about all of us uniting to fight against how do I put it now, the ravaging of the medical profession.
Okay.
Now, a patient that you probably would have spent 5,000 and it will be well, before he comes, he has expended all his resources before he comes to the doctor. Now, he now expects that when he gets to the doctor, he should get it free. No, it can't be free. So if somebody is ill, for example, you're not feeling well, the first person to consult is a doctor, not a medicine dealer, not a pharmaceutical shop. The first person for you to see is a doctor, because the doctor was trained to assess and make appropriate diagnosis. All those years that the doctor spends, they are not just for play. So if you see a doctor early enough, something that may take your life, you can be safe for him. Let me give you an example. Few days ago or so, less than a week, I saw a young man, and I learned he was visiting. Our place was the third place, according to them. He was visiting. And this young man had bleeding PUD. Now, we assessed, we explained to them what was happening and what we needed to do. And this guy was losing blood. And I told them, while you are preparing for us to do endoscopy and others, we need to transfuse this young man. Otherwise, you can lose him. This time I'm telling you, he was still very conscious, alert. I spoke to him. At a point, they agreed that we should get transfusion. Then we called those who normally supply us blood to please help us get blood, group cross-match, screen, and let's give to this young man. Behold, as we were doing it, they came. They said they want to take the boy home. Where did they take him to? To the church. A pastor was there, to me, who claimed he was praying for the patient. And at the end of the day, I don't know whether he is the one who advised them. They took the boy away. And they went to church, and the boy died the next day.
Now, let's look at the role of religious leaders in all of this. Why do some religious leaders keep patients in their, or keep people in their churches, pray for them, and when they realize that they cannot do much for that patient, they send that patient back to the hospital, send the person back to the hospital? I tell you this, I was in hospital several years ago, and a child was brought in, and the doctor said that this child is BID. So I asked, what's BID? And they said brought in dead. But the child was still warm. What happened to that child was that I think the child started convulsing the night before. They took the child to the church, and the pastor kept the child there, was kabashing and praying and everything. So when he saw that, oh, I can't deal with this anymore, he said, take to UBTH. Lo and behold, the child got there.
Of course, he would die before getting
now,
there.
wow, what is the role? What is the role of religious leaders in all of this? I'm not saying miracles don't happen.
Yeah,
no,
you see, to me, it's...
But miracle and medicine,
they can go pari passu.
Yeah.
Now, and to me, I also tell people that distance is not a barrier to prayer. The patient doesn't have to be inside your church before the patient, you can pray and the patient receives.
You know, perhaps anointing oil and the Lord
healing.
Will not get to
you
the
can
patients.
also walk to the patient in the hospital and you take permission, and the doctor respects patient's belief. So the fact is that, to me, I always believe that ignorance on the part of the patient and relatives and even the pastor. Because a patient is ill. Yes, there is a place for prayer. Mm-hmm. But while you are praying for that patient, allow that patient or advise or counsel that patient that you need to seek medical care. Even if I'm right, the Bible tells us that the sick needs a physician. Mm-hmm. So if Bible can tell us that it is only the sick that requires a physician, then why should you keep the patient in the church in the name of praying? And even sometimes a patient who is sick, you put the patient, forcefully under fasting and praying. And this patient does not even believe what you are even doing. Doesn't believe, he's not a believer. He has not given his life to Christ. So now that he's sick, you want to force him to accept your whatever you are preaching. And it doesn't work. So as far as I'm concerned, ignorance on the part of the patient and relatives, especially relatives, and sometimes poverty also comes in. Because they will tell you, we don't have money. We don't have money. So they resort to prayer. Like the one I just mentioned, they say they don't have money, but he had a big car. And he died and left that car.
Spending money in the hospital is another huge thing for us, because a lot of us don't want to spend our hard-earned money accessing medical services for whatever reason. I don't know. Now, for the purpose of emphasis, doctor, let's look at the preventive medical checks that one can assess. At least let's do all that so that one will be safe.
For example, we expect a woman to engage in self-breast examination as often as you can, especially if you are in the bath. But for you to do it effectively, you need to be taught how to examine your breast. That doesn't cost you any money if you are to examine your own breast. And if you notice anything like a seed, no matter how small it is, don't just, rationalize it. It could be this, could be because of this or that.
Just wish it
it's
away.
Because I'm under my period, that is why it's there. No, don't wish it away. See a doctor for advice. 2, like I mentioned earlier, every woman carries a cervix. And this cervix, of course, is prone to cancer. So
from what age can a woman start doing that?
Now, for girls who are not sexually exposed, we usually advise there is a vaccine you can give that will prevent or protect them against cervical cancer.
Sorry, sir, that vaccine, there's a lot of literature about that vaccine now that is giving people the scare.
Well, for what we know, many a time there are several things you can read on the internet that you can see and what have you, but until it is proven, because a lot of researches will go on. If it is proven that instead of protecting, it is rather endangering the life of the woman, it will be withdrawn, and that is what happens in medicine. Now, once you are now 18 years and above, you discover that you need to begin to check yourself more often. Like I talked about.
How many times in a year?
Like I talked about, for example, mammography. If you do mammography, for example, once, in 5 years, and you have done it consecutively for 3 years, and there's, and there are no issues, then they may now increase the duration with which you will do it. If you do the same thing pap smear, and they discover that within a certain age, up to about 64, 65 years, and there are no issues with your service, they will also counsel you on what to do. So for a woman, learn to examine your breast, then do a pap smear. Then for a man, one of the greatest killer of men in this environment is prostate cancer. Now you see, you are up to 40 years and above. You need to do simple blood tests that we call PSA. And if your PSA is above a certain level, because there are different levels for different age groups,
Okay.
then there is suspicious. Apart from that, well, if you notice that you are having problems with your passing urine, you need to also see a doctor who will also check you and know, is your prostate getting enlarged? Are you having obstruction? And as a result of that, if you see your doctor and they find that any of these things exist, of course they also advise you on what to do. Now, if you're in your family, for example, your parents are hypertensive or diabetic, and you are lucky at a younger age you don't have it, then you also need to see a doctor, much earlier, so that you will be advised on the kind of food you need to eat, those you need to avoid, and the kind of exercises you can do. And all these things is to delay, even if you are going to have that disease condition as a result of your parents, then it will be delayed. So even common BP check, we advise people that don't just wait until you collapse or you have a stroke before you they now tell you that your BP is high. No. I saw three friends some years ago. They were good friends. They just came and said they want to do a checkup. And I asked them, why three of you at the same time? I said, oh boy, if you see, what do we see? He said, we are friends. We were just three of them that we were friends. We just sat down, like one of us just collapsed. And he died in our presence. Wow. And so all of us are scared. So that is why we came for checkup. Let's not wait for that. From time to time, walk into a hospital.
Even with the stress everybody's going through.
Walk into the hospital. Pay for consultation fee. Let me tell you, free things, you get as a view.
Even the free things, when there's free checkup, free this, free that, people don't even make time to assess it.
So walk into the hospital, just tell them, I just want my BP checked. And if they check your BP. If it's within normal, they will tell you. If it's pre-hypertensive, they will tell you what to do so that it doesn't get to the hypertensive stage. And so many of these, even blood sugar tests. Go see a doctor. They will check you. Apart from just say go and do blood sugar tests in a lab, the doctor, when you should go to a doctor and they are for a medical check, they will not just only say do blood sugar or do the. They will check you as a whole, and plus blood sugar, plus blood pressure, and other things they will need to check, depending on the circumstances. And at the end of the day, you discover that your life is prolonged. So there are several of these investigations that can be done, but usually we tailor them, or we individualize them depending on who the patient is.
All right, quite fantastic. Dr. Leo Asekedi is a CMD General Specialist Hospital here in Benin City. It's not too far from us here. And is also a consultant family physician. You said that we have all we need in a doctor here today. And he has told us so many things and what you and I should do. All right, so how often should one, for the purpose of emphasis now, for a woman, how often should a woman go to the hospital for check, and how often should a man go to the hospital for check?
Like I said earlier on, where if you are 18, 12, 34, 35, ensure you see your doctor at least once 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Then if you are older, let's say between 40 to about 65, then you need to see your doctor more often, especially if you have been diagnosed to have a particular disease or the other. I would have loved to, there's something I would have loved to say if there's time.
Please go ahead and say.
Now, let me tell you, there are a lot of things we do that has to do with our habits that are very detrimental to our health. And many a time we overlook them. Nowadays, you discover that many of our younger folks, they are into several things. Now, common cigarette smoking that has become nearly the order of the day. If you don't smoke amongst a certain group of persons, they say you are not a guy.
Exactly. Well, young men have gone beyond cigarette now. They do things stronger than cigarettes. At least we see them every day on the streets.
Yes. And now, cigarette smoking alone is associated with several several diseases. I did a study and I discovered that just that one stick of cigarette contains over 400 or 4,000 different harmful substances that to the body. And yet,
in just a stick of cigarette.
Just a stick. Now, people don't also understand the place of exercise. Now, exercise is important. If you do simple brisk walk, depending on your age, you do jogging. If you are engaged in these different forms of exercises, it has a way of helping your head, even your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your osteoarthritis. I'm talking about pains in your joints.
Doctor, this is where I'm going to say thank you for finding time to be with us on our show today. And I want to believe that we have passed quite a huge message to you watching. Your life is in your hands, just as you take care of your health. Thank you so much, Doctor. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.